morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Sharon Gay. I love this city and it's in trouble, and I want to fix what's broken and address what's been neglected. We have a public safety emergency. City services have deteriorated to the point of almost chaos, and we have long-run problems that have kept us from building healthy neighborhoods that are safe and vibrant and inclusive for all Atlantans. I believe my combination of experience in city government, my knowledge of the business and civic sectors of our city, my understanding of neighborhoods, and my demonstrated leadership skills and collaboration skills make me the right person to address those problems right now. But the primary reason we're here today is to talk about the number one issue that everyone is concerned about, which is public safety. We have a crisis, and it is different from what we have seen before. The type of crime we're experiencing is occurring all across the city, all times of day and night. It's totally random. Everybody has a story. Everybody knows someone who's had their car jacked, or some shooting, or some random thing. It's happened to me. I was mugged 2 blocks from my house at 8 o'clock on a Tuesday night as I was walking home from an exercise class. Another completely random crime that makes us all feel less safe in our own neighborhoods. And what I want to talk about today is how I would go about addressing it. I have really sort of a 4-point plan. One is the police department needs to be well-led, well-trained, fully supported, properly staffed and resourced, but they also need to focus on crime and not on the issues for which mental health professionals and other people might be better suited. 2, we need to ensure that when we arrest people for serious crimes, for violent crimes, that they stay off the streets. And we need to work collaboratively with our county partners and, if necessary, our state partners, so that the courts and the detention strategies they use do exactly that. We need smarter policing, where we go after the specific crimes and the specific activities that are causing chaos in our communities. For example, we know we have a lot of clubs and establishments that are operating illegally. They're violating the city alcohol codes. They're magnets for crime and violence and disorder, a lot of which is committed by non-Atlantans. We need to commit to a specific strategy which requires the legal strategies as well as policing strategies in order to eliminate those folks and shut them down if they're not going to follow the law. Finally, we need to work with our neighborhoods to develop specific anti-crime strategies to address the immediate causes of crime in the neighborhoods, and also ensure that the children growing up in these neighborhoods are on a path to healthy, productive lives. Criminals are not born. They are created as a consequence of distressed conditions. We need to work with our public sector, private sector, philanthropic sector, faith communities, and bring partners together to address these long-run issues so that all of our neighborhoods can be healthy. In order to fully form my public safety plan, I'm doing what I've always done, which is analyze the issues and consult with experts. And I am delighted to announce that this morning, one of the premier nationwide experts in public safety, Dr. Cedric Alexander, is joining our team as a senior advisor on public safety. He's well known here. He's also well known nationally. He has been at the forefront of smart policing and public safety, that intersection of keeping our communities safe, but also implementing good policing and reimagining police to do the things that we need in the 21st century. So I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Alexander.
Thank you, and good morning, and thank you very much. And I would like, more importantly, before I get started, just to thank Sharon Gay and her campaign for inviting me to be part of this journey that she's about to take on here in the city. Several weeks ago, Sharon called me and she asked me would I be willing to advise her along the way as she go on this journey. We had a number of conversations, Zoom and in person, as it relates to what she thought the vision needs to be for this city as it relates to crime, and the crime that oftentimes we're all too familiar with. Now, a great deal of my work, certainly over the last number of years, has been at a national level. And even here locally, I've been requested to respond by a lot of the local media that are here to talk about issues that have taken place. But primarily from a national perspective, a lot of my writings, a lot of my work, a lot of my talks certainly have addressed the issues that relates to crime. But equally as important, how do we talk about crime and reimagining police at the same time? And that is the place where we are in this country. That's the space that we live in. Atlanta is no different than any other major or mediocre-sized city that is experiencing these challenges as we have gone into COVID. We're coming out of COVID, but we also have to acknowledge the fact that these crime issues were here prior to COVID. They may have got exacerbated because of issues around the pandemic itself. But what we do know, and certainly for those of you that are residents, you know that Atlanta itself is experiencing an uptick in crime that is going beyond what you probably have normally experienced. And that is certainly a lot of what we see going on across this country. But in my conversations with Sharon and how she wanted to address these issues, it became very important to me to convey to her the only way that I would join this team or any team is that she would have to be sincere and direct and strong about confronting these issues around policing that are so relevant. Because one thing that we have to make sure we do, we have to be consistent and we have to be relevant to the issues that are in front of us as it relates to crime in this community. I don't live here in Atlanta, but I have experienced Atlanta as a public safety director here for 4 years. So I'm familiar with the community. I know the challenges that were there during my tenure here, and it wasn't that long ago. But the challenges have become even more pronounced now. So now you have a mayoral candidate, Sharon Gay, who is pledging to do something very different. Because one thing that you cannot do if we're going to decrease and confront and combat crime in this community, and at the same time think about reimagining police, you have to have a strategy. It cannot be the same usual language that we've heard so many times before. And what she have assured me of, and over the next number of weeks and months, I'm quite sure she's going to convey very cleverly to you the importance of several things that she's outlined, and you just heard her outline in her tactics, in her strategy, her 4 points to combat crime. But let me say this as a former law enforcement professional, someone who still writes about this to this day. And I published several articles here very recently in the Washington Post around reimagining police, but also in reimagining police, how do we challenge the crime issues that I have? The 4 points that Sharon and I came up with were points that we had to debate and we had to be sure about and we have to be consistent about. And the first one is that we have to make sure before we do anything is that you have to be certain, you have to be sure that you have a police department that feels supported by its mayor's office. And that under whatever circumstances they work, in whatever circumstances that they confront as police officers, they will always know that they're supported by this mayor's office, should Sharon become mayor of this city, and that they will have due process, that they will be well trained, but not just trained by checking a box, but trained in a way that we're going to build the training into the fabric of that department by making sure that that training is evaluated by supervisors. We're going to utilize the technology that is currently being used, i.e. body cameras, not just to look at officer-involved shootings, but also to take that footage and sit with an officer, and when you sit down with him or her and go over an event in which they were involved in, let's say around de-escalation, it is opportunity for that supervisor to say to that officer, Here are the things that you did well in de-escalating that process. Here are the things that you could have done better. We hear a lot about training, but what this administration is pledging to do is not just train, but reinforce that training and making it part of the evaluation process, because that's where change really takes place. And we got to recruit. We got to make sure we recruit the very best. And the men and women who are out on your streets here in Atlanta serving today are some of the best in this country. But they need to feel valued. They need to be paid. They need to have great benefits. They need to have a great retirement. And here again, when something happens, they need to feel as if they have and will have a process in which they will be judged fairly and equitably regardless of their circumstances. And inasmuch as she's going to give a lot to her police department to bring them into the 21st century, there's also going to be accountability on their part in terms of things that they're going to need to do in order to make sure that the mission is done. But it's also very important when we talk about reform or reimagining, or whatever word that you want to use today, is that when we talk about policing, we talk about reducing crime, we also have to talk about the fact too that we have to be able, more than anything else, to pay attention to what the officers on the street are telling us. And we got to pay attention to what the citizens on the street are telling us. Because as you heard in her statements, this is just not about me telling you how you should be safe in your communities. Each and every part of communities across this great city and other cities have different personalities and different needs. And those needs have to be written specific to those communities so that they can be addressed by the people who live there, who know better than in communities in which they live as to what they feel their public safety needs also need to be. Because public safety is not just law enforcement. Public safety is also all the other social issues that we know police are confronted with, whether it's homelessness, whether it's mental health, whether it's inadequate schools, housing, whatever the case may happen to be. All of those are public safety issues. So when we begin to think about this department, or this police department under the leadership of Sharon Gay, we also want to think about how do we make sure we define exactly what it is that you want your police department to do. Because we're asking them to do too much, but we have to narrow the scope of their responsibility, bring police back to what it was originally designed to do, that is prevention. And what Sharon Gay is proposing to do is to make sure we hire adequate people in this city who are professionally trained to deal with homelessness and mental health and address the other issues around housing. All of those issues are public safety issues. And until we attend to those issues, instead of just sending police to address them in attempts to put a Band-Aid on them, you're going to find ourselves in the same place we are now. So we have to do something categorically very, very different if we're going to confront crime in this community or any community across this country. And if someone were to ask you what community is doing it best, Dr. Alexander, who's doing it the right way? Who's reducing crime and reimagining policing at the same time? And my answer will be to you conclusively, nobody. Atlanta has an opportunity to be the leader of progressive policing in this century, and to be the leader now. If we take on the challenge that this mayoral candidate is offering to this community, because public safety is at the forefront of everything in Atlanta and every city across this country. Because the fact of the matter is, you really can't wait. These issues need to be addressed in the here and in the now. It cannot wait. You're 6 months out from an election, but the fact of the matter is, every day that you pick up a newspaper or go to the internet or turn on your local news or national news, we're hearing these repeated stories of violence every day. They need to be addressed immediately. And we got to talk about them, but then more importantly than anything else, I think we got to be able to make these things happen in the here and now. But it won't be until this candidate hopefully is elected in this community so that we can move the ball forward. But I will assure you this, I go across this country every day. I speak to chiefs across this country every day. I write about this. This is the space that I live in. Unless we do something very different, nothing different is going to happen. You cannot talk your way out of this. You cannot politicize your way out of this. This is going to require action at a whole new level. And it has to be sustainable. And anyone can step behind this podium in their campaigns and say to you, here's what I'm going to do to stop crime. But the key is, whatever you do, it has to be sustainable. It has to stand the test of time. So when Sharon Gay devised her 4-point plan here, it addresses many of the very relevant and salient issues that this community is confronted with every day. But not just to put a plug in it for a moment, but sustainable responses and answers to questions and the fear that people have in this community each and every day. When you get to a point where you cannot jog down the street, you cannot walk outside of your home, and it doesn't matter what community you live in. This is a large, broad, diverse, and strong and proud and historic community that is being challenged by a criminal element that is overwhelming this community, and the urgency of this is now. But it's not going to be politicized away. It's not going to be sharp language of what I did when I was in office. This is going to be about the here and now, what we're going to do going forward. And we have an opportunity, this community has an opportunity, and I like to again thank Sharon Gay for the opportunity to be here with her today and help share her plan. I am going to be at her side as she moves forward in her campaign, and my focus is in my lane, which is around public safety. And I will pull out all stops and provide everything that I can to support and help her get elected, but most importantly, to help this community to move from the place in which people appears to live in a place of fear at this moment. It's not right, it's not fair. Atlanta is a dynamic community with a dynamic history, and we do not, under any circumstances, want to fall to the element that's out there that's creating this. We want to fight crime, and we want to reform a department in which the men and women inside that agency know exactly what their mission is. They are well trained and they're well compensated for the work and the challenge and the bravery that they show us every day. And I'll stop right there. Thank you.
Dr. Alexander, does this speech amount to an endorsement of Sharon Gay's campaign?
I would say that it would, and if I sound anything short of that, let me be clear. I think it's important anytime that I signed off on advising anyone around a very critical issue like this, I have to endorse that candidate. And I endorse her from a posture of this, and this alone. She is committed to this mission. I spent 40 years of my life in public safety. Even post my career, I'm still in public safety, working, reading, writing, spending time, talking to criminal justice people across this country every day. And I'm still very much engaged. And the only reason I joined this campaign is because she had the courage to step out and ask me to help her, and made a commitment to this community and to me that what she has outlined and what you will hear further along her campaign is a commitment to change the status of the fear that people are living up under in this community. And it's not right. And let no one tell you the basic same old story over and over and over. Because here's an important piece, and I appreciate your question. We have to utilize all the talent that is around us. If you have criminal element that you all have reported that's coming into your community and adding to this mayhem, we also have to have the ability to find people who are soldiers, people who want to fight crime from across this country, who want to help us with this mission. So Sharon coming to me at this place that I'm in right now, in the role that I play, took a lot of courage on her part. But it was more than just, will you do this because I'm running for mayor?
That I want to be a mayor for all Atlantans, that I have moved in all areas of the city for decades and have tried to work on issues that affect the lives of every Atlantan, not just people in my own neighborhood. And that I will take a non-traditional approach. As those of you know, I've been in government, but I'm not a politician. Never run for office, never really inspired to run for office.
Why now?
But why? Because I think our city is in a crisis moment and that we need a different kind of leadership. What I am offering is servant leadership. As Senator Warnock said when he started running for office, I'm raising my hand for a tour of civic duty. I don't have any particular political aspirations. I don't have any ambitions to higher office or to be on TV a lot. No disrespect to TV. But I, after a career of being involved in the civic issues in government and neighborhoods and the philanthropic sectors of our city, see that there's a need to bring those things together and build community partnerships. And to the point that Dr. Alexander was making in response to Morris's question is, clearly there's some short-term urgent issues, and we need to bring in community partners, that's the faith community, and the leaders in neighborhoods, and begin to help young people where they live in their own neighborhoods so that they don't get frustrated and they don't act out the things perhaps that have been done for a generation or more in their own neighborhoods and their own families. So that's both a short-term issue and a long-term issue. And I have a long history of collaborating with lots of different community partners. And that's what I see as important to public safety, but also to our healthy neighborhoods and healthy communities. And I'll be talking more about the Healthy Neighborhoods strategy soon. But it's really a desire to serve, a belief that I have a skill set that is useful for the crisis we face right now.